Navigating the road to success in the entertainment industry can be daunting, but we're here to help keep you centered, undetoured, navigating the artist's journey. My next guest has over 30 years' experience working in film and television. He's worked as an assistant director and associate producer on such films as Forrest Gump, Pirates of the Caribbean, The Jungle Book, Zoolander 2, Mother's Day, The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, The Lion King, Jungle Cruise, A Quiet Place 2, and, most recently, on Spider-Man No Way Home, one of my favorite all-time Marvel movies. Dave Venghaus has built his career as an assistant director, working for some of the most established directors in the world, including Steven Spielberg, Jon Favreau, Oliver Stone, Gary Marshall, just to name a few. Let's drop in on the conversation I had with Dave in the latter part of last year about what it takes to be an assistant director in Hollywood. Listeners, I'm so grateful to have one of the most unsung heroes in this industry with us today. The work he's done between his 30-year canon of a career is truly extraordinary. Welcome to Base Camp, David Venghaus.
Welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming, David. I wanted to jump in, as I do all of these interviews, and just kind of go back to the sandbox, go back to when you were a small little Davy boy, and tell me kind of the support system you might have had, or if you even had an inkling that you wanted to do what you do today, which is be an assistant director for some of the most remarkable films we've seen.
Well, it actually goes as far back as when I was a little kid. I was about 8 years old, and my grandfather, who helped raise me and my siblings, was just an avid fan of films, and he inspired me a lot with respect to the love of film. And I always knew back, even when I was a kid, I always thought it was an amazing experience to watch a film, and then I got interested in how they made films. So I ended up going to college. I didn't go to a film school at the time. I couldn't afford it. So I went to small school upstate New York and studied film, and I had some amazing professors who guided me, and I was able to work with them to do independent studies, to continue film studies. And I made the best of what I could at the college I went to. It was a terrific college, Oneonta, SUNY Oneonta, part of the State University of New York system.
Yeah, where is that up in upstate New York? I have family up there.
Yeah, it's about near like Albany, that kind of center of New York, middle. It's almost smack middle of the state, up in the mountains. Beautiful.
Okay. Yeah, beautiful, I have family in Hudson Falls area.
So it's
near
in that
Saratoga.
General vicinity. You're right. Anyway, studied, and during my college education, I was able to get internships down in New York City, and did internships whenever I could every summer, and use that opportunity to build a resume while I was getting an education. And when I got out of school, I was, back then we didn't have the internet, so we didn't have email and all of that, as you know. And so I needed to type resumes and type up my cover letters and mail them. And I got, there was a thing called the Ross Television Reports, and I figured TV might be easier. And I sent my resume to every TV show in the country at the time, most being in Los Angeles at the time. And there's one in New York that was predominant, and it was the Cosby Show. And I was lucky enough to get on the Cosby Show as my first job as an intern. I started as an intern, then I got bumped up as a production assistant. And that's how I started the business. So I was lucky enough to start my career in one of the greatest television shows in history. And it remains an extraordinary experience that I had. I was there for 2 seasons. And from that, I started understanding what job opportunities there were. And at the time, like most people, I thought I was going to come out and be the next Steven Spielberg, a director, writer. And what I realized when I got into the business is there's so many other job opportunities out there. And a path for me for directing was the most logical path for me was to become an assistant director. And I've been obviously blessed to have been working as an assistant director since. It took quite a bit of time though, but that's pretty much my journey to getting to where it was. And I didn't know anyone in the business at the time. So let me turn my phone off here. So I had to really use my opportunities in internships and just do a lot of legwork in order to get my first job, because I didn't have any family in the business at all. My grandfather was not in any form of entertainment. So it was a lot of legwork, and it's unlike today. It was a lot more legwork because again, you didn't have the internet, you didn't have those kind of
A lot of
opportunities.
hustling.
Yeah, yeah, a lot of typing, a lot of typing.
And did you like ride bikes to bring them to places, or like, well, you did
No,
work, so
I walked
subway
barefoot
obviously.
in I walked barefoot in the snow for 20. No, no, I put them in the mail and sent them, and mailed them out. Like I said, I was living in New York at the time, and most of the shows were in Los Angeles. And I actually, at one point, had some opportunities there. It came from those letters. I think I might have sent 200 or 300 letters out. I mean, it was amazing how many. And I might have gotten 20 responses back, and out of that, I think I got three that said we're interested in you, and two of them were in Los Angeles. So I actually flew out to LA on the little money I had. Had some opportunities offered to me there, and I thought I was going to be moving. When I flew back to New York, thinking I'm moving out to LA, Cosby Show called and said, offer me a position. That's why I stayed. So I did all of my production assistant work in New York, actually. So I was lucky enough to be able to stay home. Lived in Brooklyn at the time, and I started Cosby, and then transitioned into film over time.
So what was it like going in that first day, if you can remember back on set? Like what, obviously it's something brand new for you. It's a pretty renowned show at the time. I'm sure you probably didn't realize how, renowned it would be when you went into the job. But what was your energy mindset like? What going in did you feel that first day?
What was interesting, before I had done Cosby, like I said, I actually got hired as an intern, not even as a production assistant. It wasn't even a job. So I had to work two other jobs. I worked as a bartender, and I also worked on a yacht, World Yacht Restaurant Cruises, whenever
What
I
did you do on
could
a
make money.
yacht?
It was one of those restaurant cruises around New York, like Circle Line, and those. It was called World Yacht Restaurant Cruises, and I was on the Marine department. I worked as a second mate or third mate at the time. Just I wasn't very good on the restaurant side, so I worked as the Marine side, and I had to work to make money to pay the rent. And Cosby wasn't the internship there; didn't pay much at all. It was just a stipend, really. And so I needed a foot in the door. So when I got in for the first time, before that I had done internships, and one of the biggest internship I had done was for CBS News, and we had done WCBS actually in New York. And I remember going in there, and they typically put you all in a room, and the interns all sit there reading magazines all day until someone calls on you to do something. And I was like, I can't do this. I can't sit here. And I was just one of those that had to be working. So I would just offer myself, I just walk around and meet people, and I offered myself my services constantly. I just didn't want to be that guy sitting waiting for someone.
That is so
And yeah,
important. I'm glad you said that because I feel like that is one thing that a lot of people in this industry, no matter where they are in the industry, they're waiting for opportunities to come to them instead of going out and making your own
yes,
opportunity.
absolutely.
And it's so important to realize that this is just a relationship business. That's all
Yeah,
it is. And just like
yeah,
any other business, it's all about creating those relationships. And if you just stay back in the shadows or rest on your laurels that, oh, an agent's gonna, because you don't even have an agent. Like you've done
no,
all of this work literally on your own. No one has gotten you the work that you do, right?
that's
And I
correct. Yep, that's
remember
correct. Yeah,
my friend told me that. I was like, oh my God, that is
yeah,
just remarkable. So you're in this like master class level of a teacher for other people seeing
yeah,
you coming in to let them know that it's all about just creating relationships and how we can be of service to others.
exactly. And it was, that was exceptional because I was able to learn that you can't just sit and, believe it or not, from CBS News, when I finished that internship, I was graduated college already. I needed to finish some credits, and that was my first internship before I got Cosby. And they were so impressed, they wanted me to work, stay on, and with a job title. And I didn't want to do news; I wanted to do movies and television. So I passed on it, and I was lucky enough to get Cosby. But the same thing happened. I got the Cosby, and they put us in a room, and it was, just waited for someone to tell you to go do a run somewhere, and I just couldn't do that. So I would sneak off, and I would just start offering my services. And I immediately went to the stage and said, I'm going to become friends with that guy. And it was a stage PA. He was the production assistant. And I just immediately said, I'm going to just latch on to him. And I offered him that. So I became his guy. So when he eventually left earlier in the season, and they were looking to replace him as a paid production assistant job on the show for the assistant directors, they bumped me up because while the others were all sitting in a room, I was making sure I was making those relationships, as you said, and that was the one. And I was smart. I was like, I'm not going to make a relationship with the ads. I'm going to make a relationship with this guy because it's the job I want. And it was smart because when it was time for him to get replaced, they went to him and said, "Who should be that guy?" And he pointed at me. So I was lucky enough to then bump up. And the funny thing, I was making, I think, $25 a week as an intern. They give you basically Subway and lunch stipend. And then as a PA, I bumped up to $250 a week at the time, and it was like, oh my God, I'm making all this money, but even that wasn't even a living wage. But so I still had to work 3 jobs. I worked as a PA and then bartended whatever I could, the yacht, whatever. So, but it was an opportunity to get the experience I needed to move up.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's so important to just upgrade that peer set. Because when you're around peers that are just like dragging you down, it feels, it doesn't serve the soul. So
Right.
when you kind of upgrade your peer circle, you probably even noticed energy shifts from each time that you've upgraded your peer circle, how
Yes.
much more fulfilled you feel and how much more of like gratitude and joy you feel. I mean, I'm sure just the price tag of that 250 a week is one thing, and that's a gratitude and joy for someone your that age, right?
Yeah.
But just the being of service, being that puzzle piece that fits into this grand puzzle of this art, that we all are trying to fill, like how can we
Right.
be that puzzle piece? And you were that's so great that you like knew what you wanted, you went for it, and you did everything you could to support yourself during that, because you still needed to live, which is
Yeah.
important to let all the
Got to pay the
listeners
bills.
know.
Yeah.
So that none of those jobs are worthless. Like being a bartender,
Mm.
being in, I'm a massage therapist actually during
Mhm.
the day. So I do massage work for the last 22 years, and it's so fulfilling, to be
Yep.
able to do that and also, do what I do as a storyteller. That's amazing. So tell me from there, from the Cosby Show, what was that next level up that happened?
Well, the first thing that I did was I learned, it was interesting, not to belabor the Cosby Show, but it was interesting while I was there, we would rehearse on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursday. I'm sorry, Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and shoot our tape on Thursdays. And so Friday was the turnaround. The crew would turn the sets around for the next week's show, and Monday they had a table read. They continued turning the sets around. And so I would just sit at the stage door. I was a stage door PA, they call me. And the crew would tease me like, "Oh, you're not doing anything." And I said, "Well, I'd help, but you're all union. I'm not a union guy." And they got me a waiver. So every Friday and Monday, they would rotate me through different departments. So for 2 years, not only was I a production assistant, but one week I would work with construction. Another week I would work for the grip of lighting department. Another week for painters and set dressing, whatever, but they rotated me. So for 2 years, I had an opportunity to work through all job opportunities
Oh, I
in
love
on
that.
that show. Yeah, it was
So
amazing, and it
cool.
was
So
an
you can get a
amazing.
waiver? Can anyone get a waiver even today,
No,
or is
that
that
was
gone away?
back then.
Okay.
I don't know if they still have that kind of apprentice type of thing. And the idea, so I was able to look at all these job opportunities, do all of these jobs, which I believe eventually made me a better assistant director because I understood. I was no longer telling people, talking to them as if I didn't understand what they were doing, because I did their jobs not at the level they do, obviously, but I did it, and it gave me an insight on all these other opportunities that were available. And I immediately knew that my track, if I was going to be paying the bills track, at the time I thought that's what it was, because I thought, okay, I want to be a director someday, and I'm going to be a writer, and blah blah blah. And I wanted to figure out, okay, but I need to pay the bills, I need to get a job, I need to build a career in this industry. And I immediately knew the assistant director track was what I wanted to do. I'm a bit of a control freak, so I like being in charge, I like solving problems, I like being the one that people lean on and go to for direction. And I like working with directors. So I was very lucky. So with that said, immediately I said, okay, if that's what I want to do, then I started setting myself, okay, my ultimate goal is to direct someday. And I was lucky enough to direct certain things that I still would like to direct. But right now, I said, if I want to get there, what are the mini goals I need to do to get there, to be able to build a career, to be able to make a paycheck, to build I don't have to be bartending and working
So
on
you can
yachts
work
and stuff. I'm
backwards, like
exactly.
specifically.
So
Yeah.
I
And did you do this on
made my.
paper at all, or
No, it's in my head,
just in
and
your head? Okay.
yeah, and I asked questions. What do you need to do? And immediately learned. if you want to become an assistant director, there were tracks that you could do as a production assistant or trainee programs, et cetera. One was being a PA, production assistant. And in order to do that, you had to work 600 days, not hours, but days as a PA before you put your book in to get Directors Guild of America, which is the union I'm part of. And I knew that, so I said that's what I want to do. So immediately I said I want to be a PA on a TV show or a movie that is not this tape thing. I wanted to be on something more movie related. And believe it or not, between the 2 seasons of Cosby, I met an assistant director working on a film next door to us at the stages we were shooting, and became friends with him. And he gave me a job opportunity. I worked on my first movie in the summer between the 2 seasons 4 and 5 of the Cosby Show. And I worked on a movie called Lean on Me. So immediately I got a taste of a PA, a production assistant on a movie set. And it was a movie with Morgan Freeman. John Avildsen was the director. And I did that. And I went back to Cosby for a second season. And I said, God, I really loved that though. And I went to Mr. Cosby at the end and said, I think I need to move on. And I started getting job opportunities. So I knew my next track was, okay, I want to be a PA in that world, location shooting, single camera, they call it. And then once I started doing that, I realized, okay, now I want to be what's called a key PA. And I said, I want to be the guy that head of the PAs. And it took me a while, and it became that. And there were certain assistant directors I wanted to work for, and I did that. And so I created these mini steps that I didn't say, okay, I want to go from here to here. How was I going to get to that second or that ultimate level, which was at the time I thought directing. First assistant directing was not something I was like, I don't know if that's really what I want to do. I'm lucky enough that I did it, and I've been very successful at it, thank God, knock wood. But I think that at the end of the day, just structuring a plan for myself that was private, that it wasn't a public thing. I had no one else, I didn't talk to people about it unless I needed advice. But I just did that for myself, and I just it was easier to create a path for myself by doing that.
Yeah. It's so important to create those actionable steps for ourselves so that we have an idea of where we're going. Because if we don't have any vision of where we're going, we're just going to stay stagnant, and it's just going to be this hamster wheel of, oh, waiting for
Exactly.
that next thing to come. And
Yeah.
that's for any side of this industry. But just creating that in your mind was so important, because when you said luck before, it's funny because I always think of luck being your preparedness meeting that wonderful opportunity at that intersection of synchrodestiny. Like you were
Yeah.
meant to be on that course. Like whether you believe in a higher source or not, I happen to believe in God, but God had, had these amazing like pathways for you to take. You from your free will chose, okay, I want to be here for this certain amount of time and learn all I can from that, but then I need to grow past that to here and break into that uncomfortable realm that maybe you didn't know what you were exactly doing at the time,
Right.
jumping from TV to film, but you were careful in your preparedness and accepting the uncomfortableness. So was
Yeah.
there a degree of uncomfortableness when you leaped from there into something like as big as, let's say, Forrest Gump?
Not, it was interesting because I was so naive that a movie was a movie. And believe it or not, Forrest Gump at the time, I was like, really? It's funny because I was doing a movie. I was lucky enough.
Yeah, we never
I
know
had
on the
done,
front end. We never know unless it's already
we
a
had no,
franchise. Like
even
you
the
know,
studio, yeah, even the studio didn't believe in that film when we were shooting it. And I hate to say that, but it was true. There wasn't, it was not, I don't think they expected it to do as well as it had done. Before that, that happened to only be my second job as an assistant director. I was a second AD. I was working on a film called Natural Born Killers with Oliver Stone.
my God,
That was my first job. I know. And that was a
movies.
hard show. And
Yeah.
everyone asked me the most difficult show I've ever done. And Natural Born Killers remains the most difficult thing I've ever done. It was a great experience. Don't get me wrong, but it was especially as a first job in the industry. And I was a second, and my responsibilities were I did everything I was told to do for the first and the key second. And when I finished that film, I was exhausted and I had been gone for a long time. And I got this call from a wonderful second AD, she's now a producer. And she had called and said, we're looking for a second on this movie, Forrest Gump. And they wanted me to start immediately. As soon as I wrapped, they wanted me to fly from Chicago, where I was doing Natural Born Killers, to South Carolina, where they were doing Gump. And I was like, I don't know. And so and I was tempted to say no because I just wanted a break. And she sent me the script, FedEx me the script, and I got the script, and I said, okay, let me read a bit. And I think I got to page 30, and I was like, when do I start? So the script was so brilliant. So I was blessed. I was really blessed and not lucky. I think just blessed with respect to getting that opportunity. And it was an extraordinary opportunity, and it remains top two films I've ever worked on, not just because of the success of the film, but the experience was amazing. Robert Zemeckis, who I was lucky enough to eventually first for him down the line on A Christmas Carol, he just a visionary. He was, and at the time we knew we were making this amazing film. And Tom Hanks is just brilliant, and I go on and on. Don Burgess, the director of photography, everything about that film was just genius.
Like
it was like making 10. It really was, and it was making 10 amazing films. It's really like the Vietnam sequence was its own movie. The Gump House was its own movie. The fishing trawler, the shrimp trawler was its own. It was like making these little mini movies to make this gigantic journey of this man, including the running. We would get on a plane and fly to another state, and they would do running, Tom running across the country. And so that was an extraordinary experience. And by the time, I mean, it was just, to us, it was just another movie. For me, it was not, I was, wow, I'm doing this movie with who Robert Zemeckis was gigantic at the time. Tom Hanks obviously was, Tom Hanks. And but it didn't intimidate me because I was so confident. I was probably, one thing as a New Yorker, I have an overabundance of confidence whenever I did. And because I was always, if I did ever wanted to show fear or any signs that I didn't know what I was doing, that's the worst thing to do as an assistant director. So was I privately nervous? Probably. I don't remember now, but I always approached these jobs with the most amount of confidence I could, because you wanted to show that, and they look for that.
Absolutely. And it's so important to be that support system for everyone else too,
Yeah.
because I feel like fear is kind of palpable and it's also contagious. So, if you don't know what you're doing, everyone else is going to somehow feel it. And it's apparent in every aspect of this industry, even as actors, it's completely apparent. They might not know what it is, but a casting director will be like, yeah, I don't know what it is. I just can't put my finger on it, but it's something off about them. They're just not fully authentic in who they are, and that's usually fear.
Yep.
So now, after Forrest Gump comes out, and you've seen the huge success in that, what happens next? Because I know that there was a time there, I think if I remember correctly, that you were supposed to work on a very, very significant film, Titanic. Did that?
No, I actually did work on Titanic briefly. Unfortunately, it didn't work out. It was not the right matchup. I was a key second at the time. I was key second AD with the first assistant director, and is a great AD. He still works all the time, and he and I just were not the right match. So I decided to step away from that project, and I regret that. I mean, the one thing that I've always said is that I would never quit anything, and that was something that was hard for me to do. And I have my reasons I'm not going to get into right now. But I did work on it briefly in the beginning, and it was an extraordinary experience. Even the brief time I was there, it was Jim Cameron is again another genius in Hollywood, and the work he's done, obviously, rightfully so, is very successful because of his genius. And but yeah, I did have an opportunity briefly to work on that film, and then I had moved on.
So when you move on from that, and when you're in that space of like what's happening next, was something just immediately presented to you next, or did you take some downtime to reflect on like why that wasn't a good fit for you? Because I feel like we all have dips in our career, and how you get through those dips is like catapults you to the next thing that you're just meant to be at. Did you have a dip there at all where you're like went into
no,
you just immediately had something else?
Sometimes I wish I did. I didn't. No, I was lucky enough to get offered a job right away after that, and it's for whatever reason. I mean, it was, but I was lucky enough. I have been very lucky that I've had no dips in my career. I mean, I'm probably jinxing myself now because there's plenty of time left. So no, I've never had wanted for work. I've been very, again, blessed, and I consider myself blessed. But I also recognize that it's the hard work that I put in, that they recognize that, and they want people that have experience and have a track record, and I have to maintain that. And the fact of the matter is, sometimes people tell you that you're only as good as your last job, and it's kind of true, because no matter what my resume is, at the end of the day, if you botched up anything in the last job, I mean, there's current tragedies that just happened recently in certain film sets that are going to affect people's careers and decisions. So you have to treat every movie just individually, and you can't just constantly brag about. I never brag about my career. I never brag about myself. And someone put it very well. Someone was bragging about his 30-year career, and someone said, "He goes, sir, that doesn't make you good. That makes you old." And it's kind of true. It's you have to go into this with open eyes, and you're at most times you're working with brand new people each time. So, and I'm not saying I've ever had to reinvent myself, but you do have to adjust to the director. The director I'm working with right now, for instance, is nothing like the director I worked last year. So it's, you have to adjust, obviously, to meet and match the director that you're working for, because that's my responsibility. But I try to maintain a certain level of unity, or how I do my job. And anyway, so I don't know if that answered your question or not.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, for any listeners that are just not sure of what you do on a normal day basis, just getting down to waking up in the morning and just getting yourself going, can you kind of walk me through your whole day from like you hit the button on,
Yeah.
on your alarm clock, just to kind of get us into what it takes to build up your energy, because you have to have so much energy, and I think you're wired that way. I honestly think that you're
Yeah.
just wired with a lot of really great energy to carry you through the day. But can you just give us a little bit of a walkthrough of what happens in that day of right now you're filming? Are you allowed to mention what you're filming now?
Yeah, I can mention it because it's on the trades. I'm doing the Haunted Mansion for Disney right now. So yeah, great director. Justin Simi is our director.
Walk us through a day of that. Like, what happens?
Well, I mean, I think, if you don't mind, I'd like to back up to what what my job is. And as a first
Absolutely.
assistant director, yeah, my job is to be the first level of defense and level of communication for the crew from the director. So my job is, I brought on in the beginning, and I've given a script, and I break the script down. The first thing I do is do a breakdown of the script with a program called Movie Magic, and I create a schedule. And the first thing I do is start scheduling the film. So I not only schedule the actual shooting schedule of the film, but I also am responsible for scheduling meetings and all the prep as well. So I coordinate the prep. So our responsibility is to constantly keep a line of communication open that everyone is involved in. So everyone is communicating constantly with the director and themselves. So we all have what we need when we're ready to actually shoot. And it's my responsibility to constantly keep that going. And so I always tell everyone for the very beginning, I don't want any meeting. Nothing can not go through me. Nothing can go around me. Everything must go through me. And it's just, and so the crew want that. They want a level of discipline to it. They want a clear line of communication. It's just easier because a lot of times people aren't thinking about who else might be involved in meetings, etc. Once we get through the prep, we get into shooting. My job is to now execute that shooting schedule plan. And we are level of communication with my staff. I have a key second and a second, and some production assistants who are all there to help me get through the day. My my key second is responsible for the call sheet. So our communication doesn't end at the schedule. It's also, he puts out what's called a call sheet, and we have to put a call sheet out every day. That is informative of what we're doing the next day, call times, etc. And then we also have to put out what's called a production report at the end of the day of what we shot. So we are constantly this level of communication through production and the set as well. My job, I wake up, I get the set. I'm an early bird. I always get the set an hour early. I like walking the set by myself and quietly before everyone else attacks it, and lets me get my head and my bearings for the day and really come up with a plan. A lot of times that plan involves through prep, storyboards, and previs that might be done for a sequence. We may be breaking down, getting shot lists, etc. And I go through that and I start planning out the day. My job is that now schedule the day and how we're shooting it. I work with the director and the cinematographer to come up with a shooting plan. And a lot of the times it'll include if stunt rigging has to be involved or special effects. So you have to constantly be contributing, getting contribution from all the departments with respect to their involvement to how we're achieving a shot, because it might be some rigging that has to happen that, whatever it is. So, and I have to coordinate that. I've got all these people to do this every single day. And they look to us and they look to me to be that guide and on the level of communication to what the next shot is. I have to manage through my staff, the base camp of it all. Back at base camp, we have to get the cast and background actors and stunt performers, all that ready through the works. We have to manage that and create a schedule for that. So our job is to constantly keep the flow of the day happening until we wrap every day.
It's truly like a machine.
It
It's
is.
it's a factory. It's amazing, and that's why I said you're one of the unsung heroes of this industry, because I feel like people don't realize how much an assistant director does. Like, you are literally the persona of base camp. You're
Yeah.
that linchpin that holds everything together. Have you ever experienced any issues like with personalities on set, and how did you pivot and be able to kind of manage those? And I'm talking not just crew or director, but maybe even actors that you had to kind of manage in such a way that it was an amicable situation, but you knew probably afterwards that, you wouldn't necessarily want to work with that person again. Does that happen ever? Or
It does. I mean, I'm not going to name names. I don't
oh yeah,
I don't
no,
want to I don't want to
absolutely.
ruin my career now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, fairly recently, not very recently, but fairly recently, I worked on a film with an actor who was terrific on set, and I just there's some issues with tardiness and stuff like that. But I'm lucky. Most vast majority of actors and directors and producers and crew members just want to come to work and work. Last year I did Spider-Man No Way Home, which is coming out Christmas, little plug. Uh, and it was, I have to brag about that film because it was just the most extraordinary experience. And it had this gigantic cast, especially our hero, our main cast, Tom, Zendaya, and Jacob. And we were just one giant family, and it was just a pleasure to work for all of them. And a lot of people think, oh, it's Marvel and it's going to be just this machine you're part of, and it really wasn't. It was just this extraordinary experience. So the vast majority of the time, you don't have those issues. Do you have them every once in a while? Yeah, there's certain actors that are a little harder to deal with, and sometimes I prefer not to do it again. But it's very rare. It's a rare occurrence, to be quite frank with you, because I'm actually, one thing I pride myself in is trying to figure out what I'd never do is allow anyone to give me this predisposed idea of someone's personality. A lot of times, I worked with actors or people like, and even directors where people are like, oh God, this, that, and I hated them and this and that, or hated her, and they were this, they were that, and I'm like, okay, and I had the best time with it. And so I try my best to acknowledge sometimes and I might anticipate what might be some issues and problems, and I try just to attack them in a positive way and try to figure out a way to work around them already to accommodate certain things that I've learned a lot of times you can't suffer the things you can't control in life, and certain things, I mean, I can control vast majority of what's going on in the day. Certain things you don't have control over, and if you just sit there and whine about them and complain about them, it's not going to get anything done. You have to be able to pivot. And this one actor that I worked with, I just always had to have a plan B in my back pocket so we could keep shooting and to accommodate certain tardiness. And so we did it, and we got the movie done, and didn't struggle, didn't suffer. There wasn't. I decided not to make it this miserable experience. Instead, make it still a fun experience. We did, and so I think our job is to sometimes, it's not always fun, but sometimes it's better to try to accommodate as best we can things we can't control.
Absolutely, and that's being on your toes for you.
Yeah,
You have to always
yeah,
be able
exactly.
to keep pivoting, keep pivoting. I want to talk a little bit about the difference in the energy that goes into crafting a horror movie versus something that's light and comedic.
Yeah.
And does anything ever stick with you, like when you're doing horror or when you did Natural Born Killers or any of those darker ones? Do things stick with you, and how you like release that energy if it does?
Well, Natural Born Killers is funny because I've only done like two horror kind of or thrilly kind of things. Natural Born Killers is one, and Quiet Place Two is the other one. And
Brilliant.
so I haven't, yeah, I haven't really done a lot of thrillers. I did a movie called The Ghost in the Darkness, which comes close to, but anyway, Natural Born Killers. Believe it or not, that one affected. That was my first, as like we talked about earlier, was affected me in an unfortunately negative way, and affected the crew in a negative way because the fact of the matter is, it was this weird negative energy. It was a very violent movie, as you know, and I don't disagree with the movie. I agree with all of what Oliver was trying to accomplish, and I think accomplished. But it was tough to shoot. I won't lie. We shot, every day when someone's getting hacked up or shot, and we had one scene where a group of teenagers at a slumber party got killed, and I could see in the crew's faces, they're just each one of them are thinking about their own kids as they're shooting the scene. And by the end of the movie, you could definitely feel a weight on the entire crew. We ended up shooting in this prison. We shot in a real prison, which was an awful. I'm not gonna. I'm just gonna say it. It was just an awful experience. I mean, I just never hoped to ever do a prison movie like that. Shooting in a real prison with real prisoners as our background actors, and all
Oh
these
wow.
prisoners
So
are.
the prisoners
Yeah,
are
it was.
background actors.
They were for part
Wow.
of it. We eventually had to stop doing that, but we did do that, and it was so there was a very negative weight going on, and we were proud of the work we were doing. I don't want to suggest we weren't proud of the work, and Oliver, as it was and still remains a genius, but that one definitely had a negative. It took a while to kind of shake that movie off, if you may. I think for everybody, a lot of the actors I think struggled after that. But the the Quiet Place Two is completely different. John Krasinski, I loved A Quiet Place, and I loved being part of A Quiet Place Two. I think John's vision was just brilliant, and the town, because it was a story about a family. It really wasn't about monsters attacking them, and there's definitely a lot of thrilling moments in that and horror moments in that, but the film was more about this emotional ride these characters are taking, especially from what I'm doing with
The
respect
resilience
to.
of a family unit, just staying as a
Yeah,
unit. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, I see that as well in this film.
Yeah, so so we had a lot of fun with that one. It was so I didn't have to shake any. I really loved it when I felt.
Yeah, yeah. So I believe you were brought to A Quiet Place 2 through working with Emily Blunt on Jungle Cruise. Am I correct in
That
remembering?
is, yeah, that is absolutely correct. I worked with
Yeah.
Emily on Jungle Cruise, and John would come home to set. Yeah, so that's how we met. And John was so kind, and he immediately would constantly say, "I want you to work with me, and I'm going to do this movie, Quiet Place Two." And so I'd love to. And at first, it didn't work out. I was already working, and then my movie got canceled, and then he had hired someone who wasn't working out, so it worked out at the very last minute for me to do it with him. But I loved
It
working
was
with him.
definitely meant to be.
It really was, yeah. And I love Emily. I think they're just amazing people.
They really, I love the storytelling when comedic actors like him and Jordan Peele are able to go into those horror genres. I believe that
Yes,
their storytelling is so much more authentic and it creates for a better, well-rounded story than anyone else really, because they're
absolutely.
to it from a place of what they know of being, a different world of comedy, but just translating it to horror, and it just
Yep,
works out. It works out
yep.
so well. So
Agreed.
who would you say in your career has been your favorite director that you ever worked with?
I hate answering the questions like this.
I know we're outing all.
Well, oh, sorry. Well, Spielberg will always sit at top, probably the top of the list, simply because he's Steven Spielberg, and he was someone. He was one of my steps, believe it or not. When I got to California, I said I'm going to work for Steven Spielberg, and I was lucky enough to do that.
So, David, if you could let me know who would have stuck out as probably one of the most prolific, or the director that you worked with that you're like, okay, this person touched me in a way that helped me grow as a director yourself.
I was lucky enough to work with Gary Marshall, and many people don't remember him or don't know of his whole career, but I love this man. He's been gone for about 6 years now. I started working with Gary on a movie called Dear God with the assistant director Ellen Schwartz. She was his first at the time, eventually became his first AD, and I worked over a span of about 20 years with him. And Gary may not have been the most successful director I worked with, although back in the earlier Gary Marshall days, he was an extraordinarily successful director. But he was hands down one of the greatest visionaries I've ever met in my entire life. His career spanned from writing in the news to writing for television, to Dick Van Dyke Show and a number of other shows, to eventually creating his own television shows, Happy Days, Mork and Mindy, Laverne and Shirley, the Odd Couple, and eventually, going into film, Overboard, Young Doctors in Love, Pretty Woman. I go on and on. I mean, the man was just a genius. And when I started working with him, first of all, I was a big fan because I was a fan of his TV shows and his earlier films. So having that opportunity was just amazing. But one thing I loved about Gary that I really took away, it was that the one thing about our industry, especially now that things are traveling, for instance, we're not shooting in Los Angeles or New York. It used to be you shot in LA or New York, and every once in a while you shoot somewhere else. But now we're very transient. We're shooting wherever, we're chasing tax incentives, et cetera. And I get it, it's a business. But because of that, the one thing that we're lacking or is this sense of loyalty that we all have, because we all just could chase the jobs now as opposed to really attaching ourselves to building these lifelong career relationships. And Gary was all about family. Gary was all about working with the same people. He constantly wanted to keep a continuity to the people he worked with, and even in the actors. And it's funny because when we worked, we had a thing called FOGS, FOGS. It's a friends or family of Gary. And there were actors who sometimes didn't work unless Gary was doing a movie. And he would always make sure that he would save the spot. It could be one line, it could be one little part, it could be a whole part in the movie, whatever. But he would always make sure those people had a place in every film he ever did. Hector Elizondo being
finding your tribe. And I love that. Like
Yep.
I wish we had more of that. That is so
Yes,
amazing.
yeah, and you don't see that. And
No.
these people, some of these people, these actors, some are gone now, some have been with him forever. Hector Elizondo had done every single Gary Marshall. He was the greatest fog of all. He had done every single Gary Marshall movie. And Hector would stop whatever he was doing to make sure and it could be just one little scene or it could be a part in the movie. Hector was always there. But people really respected it. I remember this last film I did with him here in Atlanta was Mother's Day. And it was one of the multiple storyline comedies. We had done Valentine's Day, New Year's Eve, Mother's Day. And we were doing Mother's Day, and the producers came to me and said, we get that Gary wants to do this fog thing, but we can't afford it. And I'm like, good luck with that. It's not gonna not happen. So just, you should budget now because it's gonna happen. And it's not a couple of people, it's a lot of people. And they're like, well, we don't really have the scenes for it. So Gary comes to my office, shuts the door, and he said, I got an idea. And I'm like, okay, Gary, what's your idea? Because we'll have a birthday party. We'll create a party, and then we'll bring all the family. I can put all my grandkids in, and my kids, will get all of them done in one scene. And I'm like,
it's a perfect Gary Marshall, by the way. Perfect Gary Marshall. I mean, he must be part of you now.
He's part of me.
You're channeling him.
Somebody writes a scene, it wasn't scheduled. I had to figure out how to schedule it in, and it was a party Jennifer Aniston's character throws, and it was just it was the funniest thing in order to put his whole family into it. But that was Gary. Gary was that director that he knew comedy better than anybody. He knew relationships better than anybody. He was all very big on empowering women. Most of his heroes were women. And these actors would, Julia Roberts and Kate Hudson and Jennifer Aniston, they would do anything. I mean, they really wanted to work with Gary. And when he called, they showed up. And we were lucky enough to have them, plus many others, obviously, in Mother's Day. And it was a great swan song for him. We didn't know at the time it was going to be his last film, but I'm glad he was able to do that. And it was funny because when we were shooting it, it was the 20th, I believe, the 20th anniversary of Pretty Woman, and it was he, Julia, Hector, and the director of photography, Chuck Minsky, were all on the same film again at the 20th. I believe it was 20th or 30th. I can't remember, but it was a reunion of Pretty Woman, so it was kind of fun.
Chill bumps. Yeah. Just to be able to have that as a lasting memory of such a prolific director that has changed the whole landscape of how we see comedy. I mean, as a child, I remember, and I'm getting emotional because when you look at comedy icons and the work he created, it's something that I looked up to as a child. As a child, I would watch, Mork and Mindy, Laverne and Shirley. I had my lunchbox. I was like, I want to be
Happy Days, Fonz. Hey.
Yes. I wanted to be like them so much, just that strong, ballsy woman that just oh, I loved it. It was so great. And how did that translate to I'm getting emotional because I love
No, it's okay.
I love
the same way
so much. Yeah. Just and just to be able to find that tribe, like, everyone should be able to find their tribe of people that they work with. So do you tend to do that now? Do you tend to work in a smaller like tribe? I know you've worked on Marvel again and again, and Jon Favreau is a dear friend of yours, if I'm not mistaken. So
he's an amazing director.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, he would be a dream to work like that. So do you tend to do that? Like you're picking and choosing now that you can do that? You can just pick and choose who you want to work with? And
I do. I mean, I've gotten to a point that I really want, and listen, I try to work with new directors as well because I like what I do and I like meeting new people. The director I worked with right now, I've never worked with before. If Favreau calls, I try to jump and do. I just worked with John Watts on Spider-Man: No Way Home, and I would do anything with that man. He's an extraordinary director. So certain directors I would love to keep a role with. John Krasinski, if they called, I would go right back to. I try to stay true to certain directors. Other directors, maybe not so much, but again, I've been really lucky with respect to the directors I've been working with. And the problem right now is I wish it is so busy right now that it's impossible sometimes to be able to work. Ben Stiller, for instance, I AD'd for Ben Stiller. I came on for part of Tropic Thunder and then did Secret Life of Walter Mitty, one of my favorite projects, by the way, of all time. And then I did Zoolander 2 with Ben in Rome. And when he went to do Dannemora, I escaped from Dannemora. I was not able to do it. I was already working, so I had to say no. And it bummed me out because I love working with Ben. He's one of my favorite directors I've ever worked with. And
talk about not being able to stop laughing on a set. Like I would think it fills you up by the end of the day to be a part of just storytelling like that because it's just so great and irreverent and funny and
no, Ben is it was tough for him because every time I worked with him, he acted and directed, and I always wanted to do something when he just directed because it is hard. It's hard for him to be able to separate. He did it brilliantly. Don't get me wrong. He was flawless at it, and I liked being his support system when he needed it, which was all the time, because it was hard. I couldn't imagine doing one of those jobs, let alone both of them. But anyway, I try to stay loyal to, but it's hard sometimes. Zemeckis, after I worked with Zemeckis, he went on and went to do another film, and I wasn't available. I was already working actually on Walter Mitty when he called to do Flight, and so it unfortunately doesn't always work out. But it's because there is so much work right now, and I get called, thank God, still from other people. And but I like trying to stay. Now, when it comes to people I hire, I try to stay as loyal as possible. But that's also hard because key seconds bump up very quickly now. Seconds, so there's a transient nature, unfortunately, to a lot of my key second, for instance. I'm sure we'll start first thing soon, and he'll move on, and then I'll bump people up. But I try to always give people that have worked with me opportunities, and I try to make sure that I'm as loyal as possible to the people underneath me.
But that
I
makes
shouldn't say I shouldn't say underneath me. That was not the right word. To work with me.
right, that you work with you. And well, it's a
Yeah.
true testament to what you do that you are also a teacher at the same time as being this first AD and holding everything together. You're teaching these people in such a way that they're able to move along to their next iteration of what they want to do, which is
Yeah.
a true testament to you as well. That's really tremendous. And then do you feel like you want to be doing more directing, in your next, how do your next 10 years look of your career?
I'd love to direct, to be honest with you. Unfortunately, the climate right now is not looking for me to direct. But in all fairness, one, if I could look back and say what I would do differently, I never really afforded myself the time to do my own thing, and so it's a lot. It's all on me, to be quite frank with you. I used to like to blame some industry and where it is now, but the fact of the matter is that I was lucky enough to constantly be working as a first AD, and it was hard to keep saying to ever say no. So I would say yes, 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 and always promise myself I'd take time off to doing it. So if I could give advice to anybody, if there is a path that you want to take, you see yourself, and if you do assistant directing or any other job for that matter, but your goal is to direct or produce whatever, that is sometimes you have to take some time to do that. And the one thing I didn't do, and I still don't do, to be frank with you, is I don't give myself the time to do that. I'm trying to be better at that. I'm trying to, because if I want to direct, I do have to put the energy in and the work necessary to do this. Because just like ADing, it's not going to come just knocking on my door. I've got to go after it. And the fact of the matter is, this industry likes continuity with the people doing their jobs, and I assume I'm a good diversity because I work a lot. So because of that, the industry wants me to be a first AD, and they're not looking to bump me up. No one's going to be just saying, "Oh, now it's time for you to do such and such." So I have to put the energy and the work into it. So I recommend anyone who's doing anything, if there's something else you want to be doing, you have to sometimes step back and allow yourself the time to nurture that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because where your energy flows is where your intention, is.
Yeah,
So if your intention is in one area, obviously all the energy is going to flow in that area. That's with
yeah,
anything in life. I see that in ebbs and flows, like where I'd be like, because I do a lot of different things. I'm also a multi hyphenate, and I notice that when my energy is flowing towards voiceover, so much more voiceover will come in, or on camera work,
mm,
or whatever it is, writing, that kind of thing. It's just,
yeah.
yeah. And so um, it's important to take time for yourself. So what do you do though in your downtime? What do you do to actually release all the all the energy created
Well,
in the day? How do you recharge?
some sometimes just not doing anything. Honest, like this weekend, granted I have a bit of a head cold. So forgive my voice, but so this weekend was just to take time for myself and just relax at home. I own a house up in northern Georgia on the lake. I love going up there and just getting away into nature and a little hiking. And but I have a lot of family here. I'm lucky enough to have I have a very large family. I got seven siblings, and actually I have two other step siblings. So actually I've got nine siblings, and
Oh,
tons of nieces and nephews, and not all live down here, but many of them live here in Georgia. My dad and his wife live here, so spending time with family is important to me. I love doing that. So I'm lucky when I'm here; it's like a second home for me. I live in Los Angeles, but coming out here is easy for me because I have so much family. So I do like spending time with family. I like going to movies. I do that. So I'm teaching myself guitar. So I'm actually trying to keep my brain going. So I
yeah.
sometimes I'll take my guitar and just start teaching myself guitar. So I try to do a little, and I love reading, but I'm not, yeah, I'm a big gym guy. I love going to the gym and working out. And that helps me. Working out for me helps a lot to go to the gym, to keep the weight off and to stay healthy, because this job does require you to be on your feet, very long hours. And not, my energy levels, I'm already a very high energy guy already as it is. So, but that's kind of me. I love, it's about family, and I love going outside. I love being outside.
You like hiking, and
I
obviously
do,
you've got
yeah.
the lake right
The
behind
lake.
you. So,
Yeah,
and nature is so healing. I feel like it's its own meditation in a way,
yeah,
just being out in nature, but also just seeing the meditation in your nieces laughing, just
yeah,
taking time to just enjoy the laughter in that
yeah,
moment, or enjoy like whatever they dressed up as for Halloween, since we just had
yeah,
that
right.
recently. I
Yeah,
I think that people forget to slow down and just, that's their meditation, just
yeah,
enjoying those really like minutia parts of our lives that we just kind of gloss over sometimes when we're like focused on work, work, work. So you're able to separate it though. You're able to, like, you're not
I
thinking
am.
about
Yeah,
work when you're on. That's
yeah,
amazing. Because I think that
yeah.
that's really hard for someone in your position that has a lot coming up the next
It
week.
is. It is. No, it is difficult because listen, my phone still rings over the weekend. I still have to do some work over the weekend, and but I try to really turn it off and not take it with me. But I have to at times, and I accept that, and it's not the end of the world. But and sometimes you got to work on the weekends. Like next Sunday, we all have to do a little bit of prep. So, but for the most part, I do. I like being able to turn off and just let it go for a minute, and not take work home. I don't take work home with me at all. I like leave it at work, so that helps a lot as well.
And do you have anyone like that you depend on, like when you need to just let things out or vent? Do you have is that mostly your family that you're doing that with, or do you have
Yeah.
that kind of support system?
No, my family's always going to be my support system. I'm a single guy. Unfortunately, I married in the film industry, so I never got married and had kids of my own. But I have an amazing support system. My whole family. I mean, even I stay close. I have a sister and her family live up in New York. A brother and uh, up in Connecticut. And I've got tons that live here, and another brother in San Diego. I mean, I'm going on. So we're spread. Even though we're all so spread out, we all keep in touch. We talk all the time. Ironically, during COVID, we started doing these once a week. We would have these things, Zoom kind of get-togethers, our family.
Yeah,
And at one
I think
point, I'm
that was
like, why
the
didn't we do that
best thing about
before
COVID.
COVID?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it kind of connected you because you start missing having the person, and that we're not in that same place anymore. We feel a little more comfortable getting together and all. But so I've been lucky enough to have family. I tend not to, I tend not to vent to people because I'm a bit introvert when it comes to that. I tend not to complain about myself to anyone else. So, but I do my own meditation and and it's funny when I'm home. I haven't been doing it here. Every Sunday I'm Christian, so when I go to church, I like that on Sundays. And our church is this tent, yeah, in this yard. It's really awesome, and I like that. And so I'll use that in the community of. It's called the Gathering. It's terrific place in Malibu, but I haven't really found any place here like that. So, but I'll sometimes go on when they do their service. I'll go online here and listen to it online.
Well, this has just been amazing,
Yeah.
David. I so appreciate you taking the time to just be here and slow down and just give us some wonderful insight as to what creates the, you know, specific parts of your day, as well as what has helped you level up into just this amazing career that you've had. It's been fantastic. If you were
Oh, thank you.
if you were to ask yourself, or actually if you were to tell yourself one thing, your 20-year-old self, what would you have told him?
Like I said earlier, if don't allow yourself the time to follow what you really want to do. Now, again, I don't regret a day of my career, but I do wish I gave myself a little more time to spend with my writing and directing. And I probably would have said that. Other than that, I like I said, if tomorrow it all ended for me, I wouldn't have regretted a day of it. I've been really blessed and been and very happy with everything I've done. So, but probably that.
And what would you tell yourself 20 years in the future?
Congratulations, you did it. So, and relax. People ask me all the time, do I, I'm 56 years old. So people say, so are you getting ready to retire? And I'm like, God, no. I said, the idea just, this is not even, I don't even entertain the idea of retirement. And I look at people like Clint Eastwood who are still directing in his 90s. So I probably want to be that guy, but who knows? I don't know. My body may tell me to stop at some point. But I am not the kind of guy that even thinks about retirement. So I don't know.
That's great because it's your life, right? Like it's your love,
Yep.
and you don't,
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
not a job at that point. It's something
Exactly.
you really enjoy doing. So it's never a job.
Yeah, it's true.
Thank you so much, David. I so appreciate you,
Thank
and I
you.
cannot wait.
Oh, this is great. This is great.
Oh, this has been amazing, and I can't wait to see Haunted Mansion. I'm so excited. It is
Yeah.
one of my favorite rides at Disney
Oh,
World.
great. You'll love
Like
it.
when
You'll
you
love it.
think back on all
That's
the
awesome.
rides. Yeah, my friend actually was the Imagineer that helped create the illusions within the ride. We went to
Oh, that's amazing.
yeah, we went to college together.
Well, I hope they like our version because we're trying to stay true to the ride. So
Yes, that's so amazing. Excellent. Well, thank you
yeah,
so much. I so appreciate you, and I'm hoping one day that we can work together on set.
absolutely. I look forward to that.
Bye, David.
Bye bye now.
Thanks for tuning in to Undetoured, Navigating the Artist Journey. If you enjoyed this episode, please do me a favor and subscribe and leave a 5-star review. And please check out our other episodes on Spotify and Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. And in return, my gift to you is a short, invigorating meditation to get your day started. You can find its link, along with other links to Undetoured, in this episode's description. Undetoured, Navigating the Artist Journey was produced by Cabot Basden of Say What Sound Studio and hosted by Sloan Warren.